Hi, this is Joy with Obsessed with Scrapbooking, and today we're going to be making this apple of my eye card from the Just Because Cards Cricut cartridge. I wanted to do a video that showed exactly all the steps you needed to take to cut out a card on the Just Because Cards Cricut cartridge. There's some tricks to it, and also I wanted to go over some of the systems of numbering your book and looking at the different envelopes that are available for all the cards here. So in part one, this part, you'll see information about the envelopes and all the Cricut cuts. And in part two, which will be my second video, you'll see how to assemble the card. Let's get started. Today we're going to be cutting this apple of my eye card from the Just Because Cards cartridge. The first thing you do when you want to cut something from this cartridge and you want to make an envelope is start with the envelope first. Now, when you look at the overlay for the Just Because Cards cartridge, you'll notice they just look like cards. So it's going to be very hard to figure out what card maybe this one is or that one. So the best thing to do is, starting at the first card in your book, put a number 1. Let's go to my first card. So we're going to put a number 1 and then label them all the way to 50. What that corresponds to is 1 will be this top left, just like you're reading a book. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. This whole first row is 10. Then we start with 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So when you number the cards in there, now when you're going to do apple of my eye, which I have written as 23, I can find it. This is I know this is the first 10, this is the first 20, so 21, 22, there's 23. And I know that'll be my apple. Now, the idea with this cartridge is that for each of these columns at the bottom, there's an envelope, and that envelope should fit all the cards above it in the column above it. It will also fit other cards on the cartridge because there's many rectangular ones, and many of the envelopes in here use rectangular cards. There's only a few that there's like one column is square and there's one column a real long rectangular. So the rest can be interchangeable. However, there are only a handful of cards that can cut 5.5 inches on a 12 by 12 inch sheet. It's not every envelope on here, so you do want to be aware of that, and I will put that in the text that goes with this video on my website, obsessedwithscrapbooking.com. If you happen to see this later on, past early April of 2010, you can always look under my labels for Just Because Cards, and this post and video will come up and you'll be able to see what those are. But the big thing is trying to cut your envelope on a 12 inch by 12 inch paper so that you don't have to go to the larger mat and the larger paper. And it's only for envelopes, and only for 5.5 inch cards. So something to think about. All right, let's get started. To cut my envelope for this card, the apple of my eye card, I'm going to start with finding number 23. And I know this is 1, this is 11. So this is going to be 21, 22, 23. And I'm going to go down this column, and that is the envelope that will for sure should fit my card. I'm going to cut my card at 5.5 because it's a nice handy number and makes a nice size card. So I'm going to press my envelope key, and it says peach. Something to notice about the envelopes in the back of the book, that bottom row of cartridges, they will tell you which cards they cut. It says cuts cards number, this one is 10, 20, 30, 40. It tells you. And if you've numbered your cartridge handbook like I've told you, you'll know which ones 10, 20, 30, and 40 are. So that's part of that purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and I've dialed in 5.5. Blade is at 6, speed is at fast, pressure is at fast. I kind of like to do that. Here's my envelope, and I'm going to go ahead and score the edges when I get to that point in the card making, but there you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut my card. I leave my dial at 5.5, and I'm just going to go ahead to key 23 and just hit it with no other feature keys on. So I've got 21, 22, 23. And just to make sure I've hit the right one, I wait to see what the screen says because this is called apple, and conveniently that's called apple, so I've done it right. And I hit cut. Okay, here's my card. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this little scalloped piece, and how I do that is I'm going to hit the shift key and then number 23 from before. So I know that's 21, 22, 23. I wait to see apple shift, and I'm going to see my piece come up, and then I hit cut. And there you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut my apple. So I'm going to cut the bottom layer here green, just like it chose. Then I'm going to cut red, and then I'm going to cut my shadow with black. So I've loaded up my mat with paper, as you can see here. I'm going to go ahead and load it in and start with the green. So it's layer function key. Let's see if you can see that. At least see what I'm kind of doing. Layer, which is this top feature key, and then key 23 again. And then that should cut the green part. Notice I have not changed my dial size at all. It stays at 5.5. Blade 6, speed at maximum, pressure at maximum. I'm not taking any chances here, folks. I'm just keeping it like that. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and to cut my upper red part, I need to keep the layer key on. I'm going to hit shift and key 23 again. Notice not changing the size. I wait to make sure it comes up right, and I cut it. And now I'm going to scroll it over, if it will do it. Yep. And this way. And now I'm going to do my shadow piece. So I'm going to switch my feature key to layer 3 or shadow, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit key 23 again, which is the apple. I wait for it to come up. It says NA. Whoops, that's because I didn't look. I need to hit. So I'm going to clear, and I'm going to hit shift 23. So see how that bottom section's empty. It would help if I read, wouldn't it? Gosh, you know. Okay, unload that. So here's my little apple piece, and it's going to sit on this. So how cute is that, right? And then I'm going to have this as a shadow. I just chose a brown. Wow, it's a really big shadow. So that might actually, I'm not sure I'm going to keep that. We'll see how that looks on the card. Feel free to keep or not keep items as you see them. So, you know, definitely think about that. Now, looking at the book, let's go ahead and cut the other features. Lastly, I need to cut some of these layers. They're very hard to see. It looks like a little stem, and then also a little white part that's going to go on the apple. Sometimes we really have to squint to see some of this. So let's go ahead and do that. That requires me to press layer 2 for my feature key, and then I'm just going to hit key 23 again, which is the apple, and that's going to give me this bottom stem here. And I've already loaded my mat with brown and white paper. Okay, and then to cut the white section, I need to keep on that layer 2, so leave that on, and then hit shift key 23 again, and cut. Still haven't changed the sizing, still 5.5, so keep that in mind. And now I'm going to peel off these very small things, and we'll get this put together. Well, actually, we still have to cut the word art out, so hang on. So now we're going to go ahead and cut our word art that says apple of my eye, and my first step is to hit the word feature key, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit key 23 because that's our apple key we've been using the whole time. I leave my settings at 5.5 because that's what we do with this cartridge, and I hit cut. Notice I preloaded my mat with 2 different colors. Now I've gone ahead and moved over to the brown section. I'm going to make sure my blade's really on in case I didn't put that on too evenly. Okay, and that I'm going to cut out the of my with that brown. So I leave my word art, my word feature key on, and I hit shift key 23, and that should bring up of my. Always check and look to see what the screen says. Believe me, you'll save yourself some headaches. Of my came up, we hit cut, and there you go.